And I'm not going to ask how to pronounce your name, believe it or not. I normally do that.
Oh. Well.
I feel like I can say your name. Now what you'll tell me, it's Jerome.
No. Though, no.
All right. Welcome to Discover Indie Film. I'm your host, Jeff Howard, and I'm kind of excited today. I've got Jerome Marshall here with me in person. We're at the two mics. Hey, Jerome.
Hello. How's it going?
We are meeting in person for the first time. Jerome had a film in the Sherman Oaks Film Festival in 2020 called Soft Spot. I got to tell you got to see Soft Spot. And I have good news for you. This really cool, innovative indie short, sci-fi short, is part of the Discover Indie Film TV series. That's what Jerome is here to talk about. So we're going to talk about it and his career and his life. But if you want to see a film that I highly recommend, go to Amazon Prime Video, search for Discover Indie Film, and enjoy. Soft Spot will be in Season 7. And I'm happy to say, believe it or not, I didn't even warn Jerome about this, but we are recording this towards actually the day before Thanksgiving, and yet this podcast will probably come out the second week of January, exactly when Season 7 comes out. So it's like I planned ahead, but I did not.
Wow.
It's honestly just the miracle of timing that I have so many of these recorded and blah, 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 blah. So I believe your spot will be like January 11th and 13th, I think. Your interview will be the 11th, and your 4 questions will be the 13th. And then the TV series Season 7 launches on January 15th. So it's all like...
I'm going to pretend that was all on purpose.
It's so on.
Really, I need to get a big head. That's what I'm trying to do now. So
understood. All right. Well, anyway, enough of me talking. I mentioned the TV series. I'm just going to ask Jerome.
Yep.
You made a very cool film. I think I told you it was, of course, I'm saying we meeting for the first time because, of course, November 2020 was not a time for gathering.
No.
So we just did a Zoom Q&A back then that people can check out on the Sherman Oaks Film Festival website. But what, it's a really innovative, it's the kind of sci-fi I love because it's all in the thinking and the quality of the thoughts and the creativity. And it's, I've been using this joke a little too much, but you can have sci-fi without spaceships shooting at each other. Yeah.
Especially when, you have no money, really. I feel like that's where all the good sci-fi comes from. Is you're like, what can I do in my apartment? Which is a whole genre of short film. I feel like is the apartment short.
Oh my God, you make me want to do like a whole season of the Discover Indie Film TV series where it's truly like creative sci-fi shot in an apartment.
You probably, I would guarantee you that there's. Like, even if you put out like a little post or something, you could probably get sci-fi specific shorts in, I can think of at least 2 that my friends have made that are, we all have apartments. And
we get them all the time. I've seen people get in a cardboard box in their living room of an apartment and appear on the surface of Mars.
Yeah. It forces you to think of like, it's funny at the time I wish I'd thought a little more creatively, editing wise, or like planning that in and letting that inform some of the creative decisions more. But no, the apartment thing is real. Though having since shot outside of mine, I can't tell you how exciting it is to shoot in wide.
You enjoyed not having the limits you had with Soft Spot.
Yeah, still interior, but it's nice to be able to see people's whole bodies and get a little bit of the texture of the location as opposed to just having no furniture in the apartment. Which I still think that was. I'm still proud of that. I don't know if it came across the way I was hoping, but it's still one of the ideas I had that I was proud of as far as using. Because, again, acknowledging that everybody shoots in their apartment, like, what can you do? And I was like, well, it is kind of... Because it's all like, what can you do that's simple, that's unsettling, or that's, like, weird to where you're like, something feels off. And I was like, so if you came over and visited somebody and they'd been there a while and had no furniture at all and nothing in it, then that's probably put, a little on edge.
For sure. Yeah. Well, before you start talking about Soft Spot, though, tell me, when did you get interested in film? When did you first start getting creative? Were you a kid who always wrote stuff? Were you just, what were your inspirations to get into this crazy thing?
Let's see the spiel. Well, really, I guess to condense it, as much as possible to not bore anyone. Is basically I've always loved movies and writing. Grew up in a pretty strictly Catholic household. I can't remember a time where I've never where I haven't seen Star Wars, if that makes sense. Like, it's my first memory, I had already seen and remembered having seen Star Wars. So like, my dad was into that. My dad's kind of like a classic movie kind of fan, but also at the same time, very like strict Catholic thing. So like, I always loved the idea of being a writer, making movies, et cetera, but kind of like that, you're like, that's not something that real people do, normal people do. So I dabbled in fan fiction when I was like 11. I wrote Star Wars and Lord of the Rings fan fiction for a hot minute. We didn't really have internet at the time, so thankfully that just stayed in my notebooks and is lost to time. And then,
but by the way, you were growing up in Texas?
Yeah, Houston. Yeah. Then I took then it was kind of like, so it was something that I just kind of like pushed under the surface, and I was like, whatever. Like, my friends and I, like, we'd occasionally get, like, we had a mini DV camera, and so like my siblings and I and my friends would shoot. It was like, did you ever do that where you would make like home movies and you would like edit in camera, or like you would? That was the best that you could do. Is so I did a few of those, and then I dabbled in sketch comedy in college, which is kind of like it was more like making short films that were really poorly edited and have since been scrubbed from the internet, thank God. But
you didn't, it stayed really kind of hobbyist as a kid with that mini DV camera. Like, you didn't get like into like, cause you seem like an ambitious kind of person to me.
Yeah.
So I would have expected you to say, and I kept like trying to get fancier and trying to do like more cause like in-camera editing is actually a really fun thing for a kid. And I think it really shows that you have a filmmaker's mind if you can edit in camera, because talk about planning.
Yeah, I mean, it was like, it was stuff where, I have 5 brothers and sisters, and so that was kind of a lot. That was with the cast. And my youngest brother, we would do stuff where like we would wanted to like shoot like a scene where they were attacked by dogs. We had 2 small dogs, and so we would put bologna on him. So it was stuff like that, kind of like real low rent. And then like, but I could never get rid of the desire, because it would pop back up, like, and then, because it started really hobbyist with the sketch comedies, the comedy videos or whatever. And then we ended up doing like 30 of them. And so we kind of got better as, but then again, like, it was just like that. It's really hard to shake that whole, sorry. Should I get closer?
We're good. I just turned up your gain a little.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, it was a little low.
I'll get closer.
Maybe I should write a note to myself so I can cut that out.
Okay.
But I was going to ask you. Let me jump in with a very Jeff question. This is actually my best friend David's fault. Mm-hmm. Birth order.
I'm third.
Third out of 5.
Yeah, third out of 6. Yeah. So 3 boys, 3 girls. Second boy. So there was a lot of there, but there was kind of like I don't know. It sounds so weird talking, or not weird, but self-aggrandizing, but I've always wanted to be creative and do that stuff. But I was dedicated to the whole, like, well, that's never a thing. So I went to college, majored in advertising, because I was like, well, what's the closest I can get to writing and being a creator? And I was like, I guess doing commercials for Dairy Queen. So I graduated college, did that for a couple years, and was just like real depressed for the 2 years post college. Hated it, didn't like.
But wait, let me interrupt.
Yeah,
college. Was it like a advertising and marketing degree, or was there some filmmaking classes too?
There were no filmmaking. I have what is it called? A focus, not a minor. In creative writing, because I was the fantasy. This is a common thing among copywriters, which is this is actually the quote that got me to quit or leave advertising, I should say. Was like that every copywriter like writes the next great American novel in their head before they fall asleep every night, and I was like, and I had been doing that, and when I heard that, I was just like, oh, I don't want to be that guy who's 45 and is like, well, maybe I could have done it. So yeah, when I was like 24, I was just like. I don't have anything to lose. So I moved out here, got a job delivering medicinal marijuana. It was before it was legal out here. Funny at the time, I did not do any. I didn't smoke. I didn't do any kind of. I didn't do any of the marijuana. Then I was a script reader. Got an internship at a couple different companies. Then they wouldn't pay me, and my boss ended up. She was very sweet. Ended up liking me enough to where she felt bad that they couldn't pay me, and so she kind of threw me at a couple of different commercial crews. And so then I fell into PAing, and I did that, and I've been freelance and kind of writing, on my own ever since, and like working on my own stuff. But freelance is the way to go for me, at least, just because doing a 9 to 5 and then trying to write before afterwards is a nightmare. So I liked being able to like work myself to death for like a few months and then take a month off and just write and then shoot and that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, that's like kind of the cliff notes of the.
And was the writing screenwriting based, or were you actually writing fiction?
I did both for a while. I still want to go back. I've written a novel. Didn't really do anything with it because it was the first, and I was still getting my writing legs under me. But I kind of like, I've always written short stories that's the consistent thing. Like I'd stop and I'd be like, this is dumb. You're not doing anything with it. And then I'd just be like, well, I have this idea. So I've written a novel. And then now I'm starting to think I'm like, you've written screenplays, and I'm like, you could just turn those into novels. So there's something there, I think, where there's the freedom and at least like, have you ever thought about it this way? Do you write?
I used to. I definitely used to.
You used to. Why did you used to? If you don't mind me asking.
This podcast isn't about me, but I somewhere around my somewhere in the early 30s, inside a bad marriage, I really just it became very freeing to stop. Okay.
Gosh, if you were being interviewed, there's a lot of tasty directions you could follow that thread.
Oh, for sure, yeah. In fact, there's a filmmaker who, I promised he could interview me for episode 100, and I think this is going to be episode 350. He never came through on it.
Oh, he did.
God. I hope you're not listening.
Yeah,
Jean-Marie.
You just reminded him.
France. I know. Well, every once in a while we email about it, but
yeah,
also life. Anyway,
sure, yeah. I mean, and it's one of those things where if you don't. Because I'm sure every creative on the planet has probably thought, what if $1 billion just showed up into my bank account? Would I still keep doing what I'm doing? And I think my answer is absolutely yes. I think the fervor and the pace at which I try to create would probably slow down, but I think I would still spend 2 hours a day writing, 5 days a week. No problem, just because I enjoy doing it. But I think if the stress from it would, of having to oh my God, I need to make something that becomes something or whatever, the career insanity of it all or whatever. I think it'd be nice to have that disappear. But, so I can understand why, not wanting to have writing, make writing something would be nice. So I can see how that could fade.
For sure. And I wanted to ask when you were talking about it, because when you mentioned short stories, I actually think short story writers very frequently make the best screenwriters because, a novel, adaptations of novels are always they always suck on screen. Actually, that's why when HBO invented the extended series adaptation of a novel, it changed everything, right? But short stories or long short stories or novellas, I think, people who write stories of that amount of mass, I think those make the great screenplays.
Yeah. Well, I think, I agree. I think a short story has way more in common with a feature than, a novel does. And I'm not going to re-say what you just said because I 100% agree. It's the limited series is the best thing to happen to novel adaptations, in my opinion, because otherwise you end up with. Have you read or seen Annihilation?
I just saw the film, but I didn't read it.
So I'm biased. The movie was pretty good. But I loved the book. Absolutely loved the book, and it is a hard one to adapt. And I think, but it's when you have something that's that, I don't know, it needs that much breathing room and time for you to feel weird. I just it's hard for a movie to to get all that. Where it's like if you'd made that a limited series, I think it would have had all the time it needed, and it would have been great. But something just felt missing. But also, it's just hard to adapt a book in the first place.
It's really hard.
Yeah.
But about your writing, so you're doing a little bit of everything. Then you just love to write, like whether like what you'll have an idea and. Does the idea come to you as a short story or as a screenplay or as a short screenplay, or do you have ideas and you debate what format are you going to pursue?
I would say 90% of the time, at this point, I'm pretty good at identifying whether or not there's enough to an idea for it to be a feature versus a short. Usually I can I'll have an idea and I'll be like, there's just a short, not it's more of a scene versus. But I've also found I've thought that, and then I've written it as a short, and then all of a sudden you start having ideas. You're like, oh, you could do this, and all of a sudden the story extends way past what anyone would want to watch as a short, and you go, maybe there is a feature there. I spent a lot of time last year writing one that was about. It's always feels edgy to say, but it's about a clandestine relationship between two priests, and it's set in the near future, and the Catholic Church has just essentially introduced a policy where all priests have to wear a chemical castration unit. So it's so there's a lot of free will taken out or whatever. Anyway, so and I thought this will be a neat conversation I can have between two men in a secret relationship, and one's pro, one's con or whatever. And I thought they'd just be a nice conversation. But then all of a sudden, as I was writing it, having to come up with the backstory to give. For them to actually talk about and have real meat to their conversation, I was like, oh, there's plenty of directions I could go with to make this a whole story. So it is a whole feature. So yeah, it's not always 100% one way or the other, but usually, if I can give an example for the short, where a short is just a short, I'm in the process of editing my most recent one where it's about a maid of honor who's literally losing her mind during her maid of honor speech. I like it. I'm proud of it. And it's coming together, but that's it. There's not in developing all the backstory to fill it out. It's still, you're just if I push it anymore, it'll be redundant. So
you remind me of all the people I knew. When people find out you're a writer and they always here, I got an idea for a movie. And it's always an idea for a moment or a scene. It's not a movie. It's there should be a movie where a guy walks into a room and says this. I'm that's not a fucking movie. Shut the fuck up. But I was actually asking you, too, if you still write short stories and things. And, do you ever debate moving back and forth between, prose and screenwriting?
Yeah. I think about prose a lot. And I think I romanticize it a lot. And I do eventually want to go back to it and write. I still occasionally will write a short. It's more like flash fiction at this point, and I've wormed myself into this weird situation. I love trying to write prose while I'm waiting to get on an airplane. That is, so it only happens a couple times a year, but if I'm going home obviously tomorrow's Thanksgiving, so I'm not going home today, but I found that it's the hour while I'm waiting to board, it's a very fertile time for prose. I don't know why. I have some guesses, but mostly I think it's the caffeine that I've recently had, and then also there's freedom before you get on a plane. You're the trip could be good. Who knows what, you're in a very, a free state. So, but I like writing shorts. I should go back, but I really eventually would love to really nail a novel at some point. That's the ultimate goal. So I am that cliche, yeah. That version of the cliche.
That's not a cliche anymore. That makes you a unique. Well, I don't know. I think it's very special. Not many people. I mean, the American novel is kind of being lost to technology.
Yeah. I agree. Well, I love reading and I love books, and then it's that thing where I do it in spurts where I'm I fucking love reading. And I'll find a book and I'll devour it, and then I'm on a roll, and then I'll read 4 more books in 2 months, and then I won't read for 6 months, kind of a thing. Cormac McCarthy's recent book, or his first book in 16 years, something like that, just came out, and so I'm about to dive into that, and I'm pretty excited. He's my favorite author. So
very cool. All right, so you talked about all the writing.
Yeah.
But when you moved to LA,
Yep.
it was a while after school. You're saying a couple years.
Couple
stayed
years,
in Texas.
yeah.
Did you go to school in Texas?
I went to 3 different colleges, 2 of them in Texas. I went to Texas State freshman year, University of Houston, because I didn't like Texas State. So I was like, okay, well, I'll go to like an interim college, which was, back home while I kind of like figured out where I wanted to go. And I ended up at University of Colorado in Boulder, and they've got it's funny because I think they have a pretty decent film program. But again, like I heard, this is how like brainwashed I was, is I would meet kids that were in the film program and they'd be excitedly talking about it. And I would just like my dad's, I'm not talking shit about my dad, but my dad's voice would be in my head and I'd just be like, yeah, but like, no one's going to pay you to do that. And it was just stupid. But, it was still in my head pretty strongly at that point that like, wow, that'd be like awesome. And I was just jealous. I was jealous of the kids. I would have loved to major in film. No, sorry, I forgot that. What does that have to do with the question?
Oh, just I was curious where. So you finished Boulder and
yeah,
and then you made a reference to like working in advertising for a little while.
Yeah, which is funny that I did that, and then to make money when I moved out here, ending up in commercial production. I just ended up in commercials on the other side, so no, couldn't get away.
What was the inspiration to move here? Just to
be a screenwriter. Yeah, I was like, oh, I can just try. And it's been a good decision so far. So, not without its hurdles, but, I was just like, it's funny. The way I would describe the process of being here is I'm like, okay, so I have very narrow boundaries for myself. I think that's clearly that's the pattern that I'm recognizing now. Because I was like, well, I can't be a writer, so I'll do advertising. That's close enough. And then I was like, did advertising, didn't like it. And I was like, okay, well, we can be a writer. We'll just be we'll be a writer, and then that's all we do. And then you move out here and you realize that no one's just like throwing money at writers. No one's walking down the street and be like, oh, you wrote something? Let me make it. So then you realize, well, no one's going to make my stuff. Like, no one's going to see my stuff if someone doesn't make it. No one's going to make it. So you make it. And then you go, oh, directing's actually pretty cool. I like that. It's fun getting to like expand your story through the extra dimensions that it brings. And so that's how, I guess, like that's how I wound up directing. Was I definitely see myself as a writer first, director second. But yeah, now it's one of those things where I definitely see it as part of like the career path, as opposed to like, it's not take it or leave it. Like I hear I'm trying to think, maybe it was Tony Gilroy or something, but like some people are like, yeah, I could, but it's not what gets me out of bed. I was like, oh man, I'd still like to do it a lot. But the trick is, I'll ask you a question as far as, and this is your opinion on directors. I have this ideal in my head, whereas like a true director, like a director's director is like just as willing and as excited to direct somebody else's writing as their own. And I do not think I hit that benchmark. I'm not like, unless it was someone, I don't know, like if Cormac McCarthy had written something, he was like, Jerome, please. I'd be like, I guess. No, that would be cool. But yeah, it seems much more daunting to me to direct somebody else's work.
I see what you're saying. My quarrel with it would be, I just think there's different types of directors.
Yeah.
And I do think it's a supernatural extension. If you are a writer who is very visual and at the point of writing is visualizing that thing on the screen, then I think that writer should be directing.
Yeah.
But there are writers who just like write, I mean, especially people with like years of experience screenwriting, and they like could give a shit how it's shot. You know what I mean? So like there's that kind of writer who should be directing. And then there are directors who like, they just take something and run with it. And I think we all know there's a lot of rewriting that's unofficial.
Oh yeah. And especially like what's the old saying? Like there's the movie you write, the movie you shoot, and then the movie you edit. And I think if your product looks even remotely similar to like the script by the time it comes out, like that's fantastic. I mean even in the shorts, like where the only real like you get notes and everything but really, it's all your own choices, and then but going from script to the final cut is you've whittled it down to like just the bare essentials.
Yeah. So when you're here and you're screenwriting,
yeah,
what point do you start? Do you get the bug to direct something?
That's a good question. I would say it was kind of a confluence of situations where basically I was permalancing for a commercial crew that was shooting. I was coordinating just all the time, and I was, I was coordinating. Money's decent, I was making more than a PA. I was like 26, 27, and I wasn't comfortable because you're working yourself to death. But, for the first time I was feeling financially secure, and that can become addicting. And then all of a sudden I realized whoa, I haven't written in like 8 months. I definitely haven't like been creative or worked on anything else. And so I saw that I was like, well, so I can't keep doing this. And I was like, well, I can't just like quit and then not have like a project or whatever. So it was that. And then it was like that time where I had written something that my friend at the time was supposed to direct. And then that kind of fell apart. And so I was like, well, why not just do it yourself? Because I'd been having that conversation because he and I had been kind of talking about something, and we'd had some disagreements about like how it should be directed or what the tone was of the piece. And I just, I guess it's that classic thought where you just start thinking, I think maybe I could do this. Maybe I could do this better. My choices might be better, whether or not that's true. But I just kept feeling that. And then, so I left the permalance situation, and I went and I spent $7,000 of my own dollars. And then the audio, the sound, there was issues with the sound on set. We literally only got 30% of what we shot. So it was completely dead in the water. I still have all the footage. I'll find some use for it eventually, but that was kind of my first. And then once I got over the pure frustration and rage of that falling apart, I was like, well, I'll just make another one. And then Soft Spot came. So that was how. So I guess like, yeah, I was like, fuck it, man, you got to just do it yourself.
So there was an aborted project of sorts that,
yeah,
if anything, we can just kind of call, your first it was an exercise.
My Ellie, my partner, likes to call that my film school. She was like, that was, you just paid to teach yourself to go through film school. And I was like, that relatively cheap. So too, for $7,000, very cheap for $7,000. So
for sure. And was it the script itself that you were drawn? Like, did you say to yourself, and I guess I'm asking with Soft Spot, like, yeah, obviously I think you do write a lot. I'm under you've at least convinced me that you're a productive writer. Like I think you made reference like, writing almost every day when you have time and stuff. So was it like, did you write something and say, oh, that I could direct this one? Or it could be made for a certain budget. Like, was it that kind of thing, or was it just like, I got to direct something, and then you picked from your cabinet?
It was a little of both. I mean, it was more of like the decision. I was like, I think I should make something, and I should direct something. And then it wasn't so much going to the cabinet, and like, this is, again, I think this is a double-edged sword as far as like one of the benefits of coming from. Since I learned film and shooting stuff like production first, I'm very conscious of like what goes into being able to shoot something, right? Because like it was my job. It still is like to make it happen, right? So I'm keenly aware of all of the effort and materials and skills you need to like make something good. So I kind of was like, I know I need to make something. So then I spent a lot of time just going like, what do I think I could pull off? Which is a bummer because I still think the concept is I might circle back around to it, but it was mostly interiors. It was shot at a motel, single location. So it was kind of like coming up with how do you, again, the same thing how Soft Spot came about. It's like, how do you tell an interesting story with the limitations of being, I don't like the word amateur, but that's, I guess, like one of the better ways to describe it. Like, or a non-paid, like when you're putting yourself and your money on the line, how do you do that and like set yourself up for success for the most way? And I got close, except for the sound thing. So, but that's kind of like how I think. And sometimes I think that's, it can be a downside because I have to quiet that voice when I'm writing. Cause I'll be like, well, we can't have this monster in this scene. That'd be so expensive. And I'm like, it's so stupid. no one's trying to buy it yet. I was like, you can always figure it out how to do it differently if somehow someone was interested in your story, and you can adjust. So I think that's the double-edged sword. Is like, it's good to know, like, well, I'm not writing, I'm not trying to shoot Prometheus on a $2,000 budget, but when you should be letting yourself go free, I can do a little too much self-editing.
That is a challenge, right? Because I don't know if you told it on the mic, but you told me before we started recording that the UPM or production manager, right?
Yeah.
So that is that hat is got some crazy glue on it, right? Like, it must be pretty hard to take that hat off because you're dealing with budgets and you're dealing with people and you're dealing with teams and department heads and shit. So it must be hard to take that hat off entirely and just let yourself create. It
is. And it's funny being on your own set too when you're directing, because again, since it's my job, most of the set time I'm on set is for other people's stuff. So it's become a role that I'm comfortable in. So then when you're directing and you're on your own set, all of a sudden your brain is trying to all these little problems start popping up that aren't really related to the ultimate creative product, blah, blah, blah. But they're easy ones to solve because that's what I do all the time. So all of a sudden I start finding myself, and again, I keep bringing up Ellie, but she's, just helps me with a ton, and she's usually my first AD and my production designer and everything, and she's really rad. But she'll pull me aside. She'll be like, you need to focus. Like you don't need to be moving that C-stand or be fucking look at the camera, look down, and lock in your shot kind of stuff. So it does. But I do find it makes I know how to throw a shoot together, which is really helps. And I think, the more I do it, the more it's fun to direct and I can relax more. But it's also hard. Even if you do rinky dink shorts, tiny stuff, it's hard to get on your own set more than once or twice a year. Especially if you're putting a lot of care into the edit, and I also score my own stuff. So the post process takes a lot of time. So it's really I feel like my process, at least 18 months between finished script to ready to share with the world, which,
I feel for you. And that is just enough time to forget a couple lessons.
Yes. Yeah. Sorry. I got excited.
No, I'm with you because I honestly, the film festivals are 6 months apart instead of a year. It's not because there's 2 of them a year, but sometimes it's I forgot that I promised myself I would head this problem off and head it off at the pass this next time.
Yeah.
I don't quite do it often enough to get really good at it.
So this is funny. I thought I could be smart, and I thought I could get around it, right? Because I did Soft Spot, and then the pandemic happened. We remembered it was all fun. And I was like, oh man, in late 2020, early 2021, I was like, once things open up a little bit, I'm ready to do the next thing. So then I was like, okay, so I think it was on mic, but I mentioned the Priest short. So that was the one. I still haven't done it. But I was very excited. I was like, I'm gonna write this till it's perfect. I get pretty close to that. And I'm like, okay, now I'm ready to start, prepping it. And I go, let's be really warmed up for this one. So I come up with a very simple concept, and I write that, and I'll shoot this one first, and then I'll do the Priest one, and then everything will be fresh. I'll be warmed up. Anyway, I shoot that, and then it becomes its own thing. And then now 18 months ago, I'm almost finished with that edit, but I was I thought I'd just be able to roll right into the next one, but you can't. It's harder to do than it seems.
That's exactly how life works. But I was going to ask, so Soft Spot, were you just itching to make another one after that first one with the sound trouble? Or was it the perfect script and you shot it? The funny thing is you shot it pre-COVID, and it's the exact kind of film that got made during COVID. I literally finished the edit 2 weeks into, so I think, what did we all lock down, March 15th, something like that? I think the next week, it was when I locked picture and the sound design and everything was done. And I was just well, I don't know if this is fortuitous or, it was certainly, I don't know,
poetic.
And your timing was like, I feel for you because you made that film before the world ended. And then, I know it is a film that was submitted for Sherman Oaks Film Festival in 2020, which means I think the final deadline for that's like August 15th, which means that was that summer. And it was like, is COVID, like, are we going to get back in the, like our June festival had to be, to be virtual. And it was like, there was actually, I feel, you look back on it and you're like, God, how dumb were we? But I really did think like, by November we'll be back in the theater.
Oh, yeah. I can't tell you. I made all sorts of gambles on plane tickets that I was like 3 months. 3 months feels good. We bought tickets to Hawaii for the summer. I was like, because flights were so cheap, I was like, it's fine. I bought tickets to Vegas thinking like, whatever, and didn't go on any of the trips. I still have the flight credits, which are about to expire soon, I think. But I did the exact same thing. I was like, I was like, it'll clear up by summer. And then nope. And then things started to feel good a little bit late summer. And then we had the other waves and et cetera, et cetera. But it's still one of those, what do they say? Like, it's still a blur. It's everybody says that, but it still feels like we're kind of like in it in its own way.
But your whole festival run for Soft Spot was virtual. Virtual,
yeah. And so I guess like with the thing I'm working on now, it's just like I'm excited. I'll submit it to stuff, and I just really hope that the in-person experience gets to happen this time. Barring any sort of world catastrophe or whatever, like it'd be nice.
We'd have to have a whole new virus, right? Or like the variant from hell, because at this point, in November of 2022, COVID is a fairly bad flu, but it has, in March of 2020 when they compared it to the flu, people were full of shit. But now, sadly, we've lost a couple million people with comorbidities, and we've got vaccines, and we can kind of handle it now. But I think your next film, you should be able to enjoy in-person festivals.
Wouldn't that be great? Yeah. I won't get my hopes up. No. I think we're on the up and up, especially if, this is a vaccine PSA, but get the booster. I've gotten all of them. They're great. I've tasted.
We could have a booster chat, but I went like Pfizer, Moderna, Pfizer. Like I'm switching back and forth now because I figured I had to cover more ground.
I through just by chance have had all three now. The first vaccine was J&J, and then first booster was Moderna, and then when I got the most recent one, they were like, "Do you want Pfizer?" Like, all we have is Pfizer, and I was like, "That's fine." So I think I collected all three. I don't know if there's a prize for that, but so far I've actually also never gotten COVID, so that feels like its own. Yeah, I know. I don't know if maybe I did and I never. But I have to test all the time for work, so it would have popped up. You would think. So I don't know.
No, if you got it. I actually did manage to get it once, and that was.
Was it rough? You get the Omicron or Delta or the big boy?
Probably Delta. We got it in June. I either got it from the June Film Festival, or I think actually my wife got it first at a Dodger game.
Okay, it's the crowds,
which you think outside is enough, but you're outside with 55,000 people, so
it seems like a fair opportunity. We were in Texas visiting my little brother in May, and it was his birthday, and I want to preface this by saying I am not a club person at all. But he's 20. He was turning 26, and he and his friends really wanted to go, so agreed and went. And I thought, again, already boosted at this point, but I was like, if I'm going to get COVID, this is it. And in a throng, a vibrating mass of drunk people, that would be it. And nothing. So I was like, maybe I'm blessed in some sort. I don't know, or just probably just incredibly lucky.
I walked around thinking I was special because my stepdaughter got it twice, and because I'm a germaphobe, like if she even has a sniffle, I'm like,
keep the
distance. Don't touch my food. I'm not sharing anything with you. Blah blah blah. I don't get in her face. And then she'd go like, and then she's like, Now, this does not belong in your podcast, so I'm apologizing in advance. That I'm talking
No,
about my
it's
stepdaughter and germophobia. But, like, she's one of those people who goes, it's just allergies. I'm like, I don't know. It's a cold, and I don't want your cold. I don't even care about COVID.
Yeah.
Then, like, 3 days later, she tests positive for COVID. And I'm like, ha! You thought it was allergies. But, so I didn't get it from her, and then my wife got it. And she had it and like I was clean for 5 days and sleeping in the guest room so I could stay away from her because when she tested positive, I'm like, oh my God, I can't go near you when you get the sniffles. And then I finally did get it. I'm like, God damn it, I'm not bulletproof. I thought it was special.
So what you're saying is that I just fucked myself and I will be getting. I was like, I'll probably like test positive on Saturday or something.
No, I'm just saying that the person you live with, Ellie,
yeah,
Ellie, she will. One of these days, she's going to give it to you.
Oh, yeah.
And then you're not, and then she's going to get sick first, and you're going to think you're good for a couple of days.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So there's like a lag.
That's the problem, is there's a lag. When she gave it to me, she probably had no symptoms yet. Right?
Yeah.
Because as soon as she had a symptom, goodbye, I'm like going to talk to you from 10 feet away inside the house. I'll meet you outside. Let's go. Let's go, buddy.
Got a hazmat suit, kind of. Yeah.
Your life partner. Well, let's go in the backyard if you want to talk.
You're like, whoa. We didn't agree to share that. Yeah. All of a sudden, you're like, well, I don't know if we could kiss goodbye. Like that's no. You find out where the sensitive. Where you're like, I don't know. But it's also funny in that, and I don't know if it's. We growing up, and then it's carried into adulthood, especially with Ellie. It's like we all share drinks as a family, and like we're all like, especially when you have that many people, you just eat each other's food, and you're constantly stealing stuff. So if anyone, I'm going to go down. If Ellie gets it, I'm going down. But you know, at this point, I kind of feel left out, and it's I don't know ways that could be.
Hey, we're about to have a holiday surge. We all know that Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's is the best way in the world for germs to go from human to human in this country. So there's already a bad flu going around.
Oh, good.
And I
do
know
need to get the flu shot.
I know a bunch of people. This could be interesting. This totally doesn't belong in your podcast, but I know at least 2 people who have had a really high fever type flu and tested negative for COVID. But the question is, maybe it's a variant that the test ain't catching anymore.
That's a good point. Well, then isn't there... I feel like there's some mega flu happening too, or something like the flu's evolving. It's like the new flu. I'm sure we'll have a new pandemic at some point that'll be like more serious than COVID was at its max. It'll actually be like I love this as we're talking about COVID.
I know, and I should be asking about
No. I don't mind at all. Actually, I'm happy to talk about whatever. I just think it's funny that because. And I'm sure we've all read plenty about COVID or whatever, but the opinion I've seen come up so much is that they're like, COVID was bad. No debating it now. Definitely. But it was also that slippery where you could have, it was sneaky enough to where you could have idiots be like, well, my grandmother got it and she had a cough for 2 days and she was fine. Whereas
he's Texan, by the way. So he's allowed to use that accent.
I have permission. But yeah, so whereas I'm sure the next one that comes around will probably that's the scientists and stuff that I've read. They're all going like the next one, like we set up a bad precedent where you could have like a debate on it as opposed to where the next one won't be as kind and sneaky where it'll be like, oh no, you have Ebola 2.0. God, hopefully it's not something like Ebola, but it'll be more in your face. I guess what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, it's like when this started. Like South Korea handled it perfectly because they actually had a horrible MERS experience, right? So it was MERS that made them ready for COVID. Yeah. COVID taught us that we can fight like banshees and eventually be all right.
Yes.
By the way, when 1 in 300 or 2 in 300 Americans dying, apparently now we've learned that's okay.
That's within our threshold of acceptability, I suppose. Yeah.
Which is fucked up, but. Filmmaking. So you do soft spot, you do virtual thing.
Yes.
Anything else? Like, was it a fun experience? Was it? What? How'd you feel about? In theory, that was your first thing that you directed to completion. Yeah. That wasn't
a short comedy piece, or was actually like because I would say that's the difference between, in my opinion, like a short versus maybe a sketch or like more of the improv stuff that I was doing. Because yes, they were short things that were shot, but there was much less intention. It was like you just turning the camera on and my friends and I were being stupid. Whereas this was like, planning shots, like there was a whole process to it. So that was really the first one that, and I've done some other small stuff to like get used to cameras and, that for lack of, actors that like Ellie and I were in, like that kind of stuff, and then went into Soft Spot and then other stuff. But yeah, that was like the first one since that actually came together and was shareable, I guess, where I wasn't like, this is going to live on a hard drive for the rest of my life. Yeah.
And you haven't made one since?
Well, I did. I shot one last October, and the edit is locked. I'm just working on the score now, and then it just has to be color corrected and sound design, which shouldn't take too long. So I'm hoping to have that be done mid-January. And
you're doing most of it yourself?
Yeah.
Still composing and all that?
Still doing all that. Yeah, this one is taking a little bit longer than, it's funny because you get better every time. So it's like it ebbs and flows where I was like, well, now I can edit faster. And I can compose faster. And I've been doing music for years. But I get slightly more ambitious every time. So it's like, if I stayed at the same level of ambition, it would have been done quicker. But then I'm like, well, now I know I can do this. So then I spend more time. Whereas like this one has like, not just a score, but an original, because it costs money to use people's professional songs in your stuff. So I wrote a song in a similar vein, but I'm writing and recording that whole thing by myself. So that takes it's a project within a project within a project.
But it's so smart to do a sound alike instead of, Lord knows, how many films can't be in the Discovery Indie Film TV series because they just use music that they didn't have rights to, or they only had festival rights to. Mm-hmm. And even though we don't really make money off this Prime thing anymore, but legally you can't put it in with music that you stole or borrowed. And
I've had friends who are like, "Don't worry about it, just use it," and they've done it to decent success, like what they can come after you and you can be like, oh, so sorry that my short film that only cost money didn't make anything, and you can take it down and that's fine. But I was just like, it was also honestly just an excuse to the original song is, I really like hardcore music. And so it was an excuse to finally like sit down and write a tried and true, like heavy screechy song.
Like hardcore metal or hardcore hip hop, hardcore something? I don't know what hardcore means.
Oh, sorry. So hardcore, I guess technically hardcore is short for hardcore punk, but this would be, if you want to get into the genre, of the genre nerdiness, it'd probably technically be under metalcore or metallic hardcore.
Gotcha. All right, cool. So you just used the word genre, which reminded me of the question I really wanted to ask, which is, you've mentioned a little thing called Star Wars, like being part of your DNA. Like before you had consciousness, you knew you'd already seen it. Yeah. And I know you mentioned Annihilation, that you've read the book and stuff. So are you a sci-fi guy, or is it just Soft Spot happens to be sci-fi, but you don't always write sci-fi?
Yeah, I would definitely say I am. Mostly what I've been my shorts have tended to be sci-fi because I think you can pull off, or at least it's easier for me to conceptualize and pull off, I think, interesting sci-fi ideas that are less visual effects heavy. But my features have tended to be more body horror when I write them. But I also I go back and forth, but I would say I was probably a sci-fi fan first before I moved into horror, if that makes sense. But the dream then would be sci-fi body horror with like neo-Western, if that makes sense. Like,
and I get it, because actually Soft Spot was submitted as horror, but we probably didn't have a sci-fi category at the time.
I don't think so. There was a reason why I chose horror, because it's not scary. It's not. It's more about like I guess a spooky-ish idea. But I never tend to like. I don't know. I don't find as much joy in. I love watching it, but I don't want to shoot something where I like making people. Hopefully, you feel like you're left of something that's correct. If that makes sense. Like you're just like something feels wrong. I like it when artists and filmmakers and musicians can like make you feel like, wow, this is really cool, but something feels left of what should be right. So I try to do that, but it's not like boo kind of scary,
No, and that's actually become a really cool part of the horror ecosystem, right?
For sure.
Is the zero jump scares, but creepy as fuck, and like like literally makes your heart pound without doing anything jumpy.
Yeah, and it's funny that it's or not. I always say things are funny, but it like obviously because you have The Witch, Robert Eggers, absolutely brilliant. Hereditary, like the kind of I guess people are calling it like the A24 is almost its own horror genre now. But I would, and it's had a real resurgence, which is awesome. But in the past few years, I've seen a few Cronenberg movies like over the years, but in the past years, I've really kind of delved into his filmography, and like he was doing it. He's always been doing it. Like I was like, that's been his whole. I mean, like some of his earlier stuff is a little more schlocky, for lack of a better word that I could think of. But like Dead Ringers, I would say like. Videodrome is also like it's definitely body horror, which I still think counts as horror, but it's not what the other 80s like horror filmmakers were making. Like it's like, I mean, he did it. It was one of those things where have you ever like you're like this is like you have an idea of what you want to do in your head, and you're like this is like if I could hit this pinnacle, or like if I could combine all these elements in the right way, I think I'd really like say something or create something that is true to my vision. Like just not to sound douchey or whatever, but like, and then you feel that way. And then I watched all like a lot of Cronenberg's work, and I was like, oh, I've just been ripping off Cronenberg without knowing it.
I would quarrel with that. I don't think you're ripping him off, especially if you weren't super familiar with the canon.
No, not particularly.
And Lord knows, everybody has their influences.
Yeah.
No one is completely novel, right? He grew up on shit that inspired him, and that's why he tells stories the way he does. Yeah, so you're good. You're not derivative of Cronenberg.
Well, yeah, that would be.
You could prove me wrong by like
I think if you read maybe some of the most recent feature that I finished is all about a mother reabsorbing her adult son back into her body, which is I don't. It's a lot more religious focused than I think Cronenberg is, but I think it would be understandable to me if you read it and you were like, "Oh, I see the influence." But like again, I would never be like, "I'm achieving what Cronenberg has done." But I do think
sounds like the Catholicism really took root in you. Though.
Oh,
there's a
yeah.
Am I wrong to perceive that
no,
is influencing your writing?
Which is it's funny because I always knew it had a big influence on me, but it hasn't been something that I've focused or written about until the past 4 years, where I was like, because I always thought it was so fucking boring, and like that I was like, oh, that whole thing when people are like write what you know or whatever, and I hadn't until the past 3-4 years. I was like, I found a way to make it interesting, which is you bring the sci-fi and you bring in it's like the horror of not of like I guess you could watch a movie like The Nun, or I mean The Exorcist is a classic example of like making it scary and interesting, but I couldn't until and I just think there's a lot there to mine. Obviously, there's a lot of frustration there for sure.
I think you'll find this amusing. Like our 15-year-old, we're basically an atheist household. Mm-hmm. Her dad celebrates Christmas, but we don't even celebrate anything. Anyway, it's hard for a kid to be afraid of like hell. She's not afraid. She doesn't know what the fuck hell. Like I had to explain to her what the Christian version of hell was for her to appreciate, because she loves horror movies. Yeah. But like demonic possession to her was just like another monster. Yeah. And like
the weight isn't there.
Yeah, the weight isn't there. So for you, like I kind of feel like, when you grow up Catholic, or I had a Jewish education, but very Catholic. You have 6 kids, but you have like that's the water, right? The water joke about like the fish swim by and the fish says the water feels great today, and the other fish goes, "What's water?" Yeah. Like that's like Christianity and Catholicism is like, it's our water. Like that's why, like
without the context,
the Satan thing.
Yeah, and it's in the. I guess so not to keep bringing up that script, but it's something I actually kind of retroactively am excited about, proud of. Like, but I drew from a lot of like childhood experiences and stuff like that. And like a lot of the nuance of like the rituals of that a lot of people don't know about, or like that I realized people didn't know about it. But in one of the drafts, I never specified that it was the Catholic Church. I said priest, and I thought all the imagery was clear. It didn't even occur to me that I hadn't said Catholic. Anyway, I had multiple people read it, and they're like, "What is this weird cult?" Like I'm not joking or what. I was just like, I'm so confused. I was like, I thought it was really clear but yeah, I wasn't hiding it at all. But so I thought that was, I thought that was pretty fun and exciting.
Oh, I'm so quoting that because I love the idea that you could take any religion.
Yeah.
And if you strip away, and if you made it just 1,000 people believing it instead of 1 billion people believing it, it's going to sound crazy as fuck.
Dude, I can't remember who said it, but it was forever ago that I heard it, but I absolutely loved it. And the quote is, the only difference between a cult and religion is membership, which is what you just said. Like that's how many people believe in it. And that was like one of those, I think I must have heard it in like my freshman year of college. And that was, of course, like, I was like, whoa, it was really informative for me. But it certainly felt very deep at the time, and it still is. But like, it is weird how it's just what you accept. That's what you believe. It's like what you don't question is the bedrock of your beliefs, I guess. Yeah.
And when you sit down and write, and you're thinking about writing compelling things that are compelling for you, I assume you write for yourself, and then it's clearly these things are part of our world.
Yeah, and honestly, there's I guess when again, not to bring up Ellie always tells me that I have like. I
mentioned my wife and kid way too much. Have you noticed?
It's weird. It's like you spend so much time with someone, and they're kind of inherently a part of 90% of your stories. But I'll be in a script, and we all have our own creative processes, and I'm like, oh my God, like this is never going to become anything. This is stupid. I'm writing. This idea is dumb. And she's like, you like to toil, like you suffer, and that's part of it, like, and you get through it and you're fine. And I always forget. And then she has to, remind me, but,
and you say, no, suffering is good.
Yeah. I'm like, art is suffering.
For the art.
Yeah.
I'm suffering for the Lord. We were put here to suffer.
Yeah.
And if we suffer good enough, well enough, we end up in heaven. It's beautiful.
Yeah. That's what I write about, ending up in heaven. But when I finally did start writing about, or like including the Catholic parts and all that, like it became like the toiling was still very much there, but it was more about, using the word honoring, but honoring or like being like truthful and like getting the details right. And I don't know, having it actually like be like accurate to my, like how I felt about shit. But it was easier. It was like, I was like, oh, I know about all this. Like I know how I feel about all this. I'm not like having to I still did plenty of research for like extra fun stuff, but you're like, oh no, this is my own opinion. Like I was like, it's funny how you can write for years and years and years, and then like some random thing will randomly click and you're like, oh, that's what write what means, or that's what, like it, you just go like, oh, right. Like you're not just writing a story. You're sharing an opinion or what you actually think of, which sounds trite to say at this point after having written for over a decade. But that's sometimes you learn stuff late.
That makes perfect sense because that is. I remember someone saying like, if you just start cranking out scripts just because you want to build up a library. Yeah. I remember a friend like was writing stuff and another friend said, I don't know why you wrote this. Like, this isn't, you didn't, I'm reading it and it doesn't even feel like you had a reason to write it. Yeah. Like, their only reason to write it was to write something. And, that's just like, don't get me started. How many people I've met who are like, I want to make a great film. Like, oh, what about? I don't know. I just want to make a great film.
Yes, the concept of a great film, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so you just want the fame and fortune and this and that. Like or there's something, you don't even have a film. I'm like, figure out what film you want to make first and then try to make that great.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to even, like, I think I can get the position, or like, I definitely understand wanting to make something great. Like, we all do. But it seems hard to even approach it that way, or because what do you do? I don't know. It seems terrifying to me. If you're like, well, I want to make something great. I'm going to sit down and I'm just going to make something and I hope that it turns out great, as opposed to like, I'm making something to I don't know, to get something out of me, or to process something, or like I have this idea that I'm really excited to see because of like, it's a part of me. And then maybe it turns into something great, and that would be amazing and wonderful or whatever. But like just going, the greatness in of itself seems like a really, really thin gamble. And, you know, then at the end of it, like if you made something that, I don't know, it seems like an Oscar bait kind of a thing. Like that's where you're like, well, okay, I know if I include these ingredients, people think it's more serious or it has more weight. And so, but if you don't care about it, I don't know how you do it. Like I can't, I'm bad at writing shit that I'm not interested in. I don't know how people sit down and write a whole, like my sports movie, you know, if they don't care, if they don't like the sport. I guess money helps, you know.
Oh, you can get me started on a little tangent, but I won't do it.
Oh, no.
Yeah, you want the tangent?
Give me the tangent.
Well, I'll just share that many decades ago when I was a little more like you and I was writing and I was like getting paid a little bit to write, and I came to the conclusion that being a screenwriter for the industry is like being a plumber. You're just a technician, and if you come into their home and the client says, I'd like you to put a toilet in the middle of the living room, and you say to your client, you know, the toilet might be better in the bathroom.
Yep.
And then they look at you and go, no, I want it in the living room.
I really think it would be good in the living room.
You either put that toilet in the living room or you're fired. You're like, it's done. And it's, like, and it's actually quite pointless and uncreative.
Yeah. And I guess that's the whole job part of it versus the classic debate of art versus commerce, you know. And sometimes I go, you know,
well, and it's why I'm going to jump in.
Yeah.
It's why jump in. I love the indie films at the film festival level so much, because I'm under the impression that people are making the films from their hearts and their souls and because they want to, and they're not sitting down and going, what will make this more commercial? And there's not someone telling them, you can't do that because like they're from the right place.
Well, I want to ask you a question. So as someone who, I mean, the amount of short films you watch must be astronomical. And the small to medium amount that I've watched over the years and like there was, and I bring this up because of the topic of like, I want to make something great, right? And it's like, even on the short film or the indie circuit, sometimes you get the sense that like, especially with looks, how certain projects look, there's this sense of like people are, and again, like it always feels very vulnerable talking about this because anybody could watch anything you make, my stuff included, where they're like, this looks like garbage and your stuff sucks. But there's this sense that people are trying to make, like there's how a movie, quote, looks, and they're imitating that, or they're trying to achieve that, but there's no actual like, and that's the thing I keep thinking about and I keep remembering over the course of, as I'm trying to improve as an artist or whatever, is you're like, there's no set thing. A movie is, there's no like, I mean, sure, but the idea of a movie is whatever story is told properly, like properly being effectively. And I think, I don't know, I feel like I've seen a fair amount of short films that have gotten millions of views. They're a gimmick, you know. Have you seen Lights Out?
I honestly don't see anything that's not submitted to our festivals because we're at the point now where Sherman Oaks gets about 800 a year and Film Invasion gets about 700 a year. So I don't really have time for stuff that's not. If someone asked me what my favorite, wasn't you, I don't think. No, a guy at the weed dispensary asked me, what was your favorite film this year? Because he knew about the film festival. And I was like, at the festival? He goes, no, like at the theaters. I'm like, I've only gone to the theater twice this year.
Yeah,
like
I don't have time for that.
Like the kid was dying to see the Spider-Man movie because it had 3 Spider-Men in it.
Of course.
And they're just like so hot.
Well, yeah. And Tobey Maguire, what a babe.
She says Andrew Garfield's the top guy now as far as looks.
Oh, I believe that.
To be shallow.
I mean, he's got that British mysterious, you know, or actually you mentioned earlier Maron, so I assume you listen to Maron. But he had a great interview with Maron recently, and I was like, God damn it, he's charming. So he's both attractive and just seems like a really good dude.
Yeah, she doesn't know that. She's just judging him on his looks.
On his beautiful face.
And then I took her to see Nope because like she likes horror, and I was like, I've made her watch all the Jordan Peels, and I was like, we're gonna go see Nope now. And
I haven't seen Nope. Is it good? Is it, because I was pretty disappointed by Us. I loved Get Out, and Us I thought had it's funny, that's actually a great one to bring up for the underrated overrated conversation. But I thought for how good Get Out was, I think Us could have ended up in the oven a little, or could have stayed in the oven a little longer. So I was worried about Nope.
You'll probably like Nope better.
Okay.
But full disclosure, I almost like Us better. I love Get Out, but Us, especially with repeated viewing, like showing it to the kid.
Yeah.
I'm a little biased, right? Because of what I do, that I watch that and I just kind of sit there going, can you fucking believe he made this?
Yeah.
Like, can you, first of all, it's so original. And
yeah, the idea is great.
And the idea and the way the people from underneath are speaking. And I don't know, I totally get off on it. And I also love the fact, I'm going off on Us, but
no.
I love the fact that the opening of Us is he's flexing his filmmaker muscles, and he's showing us he could make the sweetest, happiest family movie of all time. Because that family movie he starts with, the dad is hilarious, the mom is rad, the kids are real. Like, I'm like, man, Jordan Peele could make a great family film if you felt like it.
Yep.
And then he just turns it on its motherfucking head, and I just can't get enough of it.
Yeah. I mean, he's definitely a great writer and director. I think I was disappointed by, to continue talking about Us, I think ultimately my beef with it was, it seems like he didn't have a solid, like the whole, and I hate nitpicking logistic things. I think it's like the laziest form of film criticism. But I think it was, I think by trying to tie reality into like the underground people being literal, and they'd been down there the whole time, and then also trying to connect it to like the Hands Across America thing. It felt like he was like, if he'd sat with it a little bit more, he could have really hammered it out. But for some reason, it really, the ending and the rules of it kind of fell flat to me. But again, brilliant filmmaker, and
that's all fair, and not everything's for everyone. I'd be curious if we'll watch Nope when it's out on home video, or is it on HBO Max already? I think
it might be soon.
I'd be curious what you think of Nope.
Yeah.
Well, now we're talking about other films, so why don't we wrap this up so we can get to your list?
Okay.
But you want to name web, or I know you're not a social media guy, but do you have like somewhere where people can check out your?
Oh God!
And hey, are you like publishing short stories and shit? You should have like a blog.
I do not have a blog or anything. Actually, that's the sad part. I legitimately as of this moment have no. I have my Vimeo page, which is everything is private on right now. So I have nothing to share, but hopefully by the time this airs, I can email you a link, and I like the new short will be open for viewing, and we'll have a Instagram or some sort of, because I have to get better about the social media of it all, and it terrifies me, but I think having a presence is probably good for getting this stuff out there.
It's hard to argue against it, but there's an argument that it doesn't really add too much. I mean, I can tell you this: there was a film in our June festival. I don't think he listens to this. The guy had like 75,000 TikTok followers.
Oh wow! And
his film played to an empty house.
Yeah,
like he promoted the shit out of his screening on TikTok. Like it doesn't. Social media doesn't turn into anything real. But anyway,
it seems really hard for it to. Yeah.
But anyway, so Jerome does not have a social media presence, which means all you wonderful people listening just have to go to discoverindie.film.com if you want to see what he looks like. Oh, make sure I take your picture sitting behind that mic. See, I forgot. By the way, there's like notes in front of me with like, your film and blah, 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 and what season it's in. And at the very top in huge font, it says take pic. And I didn't. We can it before we started.
Well, see, it's funny. I was just like, I was actually really just thinking of synergy because I wanted to make sure that we both benefit from this, and I was like, I'll just make sure that my plug is for his plug, and that way we're really doubling up here.
Double plug.
Yeah.
For some reason, the word anyway.
Double plug sounds like it has meanings. Yeah.
It sounds like something you'd have to buy at the sex shop on the boulevard. But anyway, so. DiscoveryIndieFilm.com is where you can learn about this podcast and the TV series it gave birth to. At DIF Wins is the social media for Discover Indie Film. And like I said at the top, if you want to see Jerome's film Soft Spot, and you really should, especially if you appreciate sci-fi and if you like sci-fi that is intelligent and thought out and not just because, right, like a lot of sci-fi, a lot of what passes for sci-fi, as we all say, is like, it's an action movie with robots or something.
With an elevated technology, yeah.
Yeah. It's just about special effects. It's not about, okay, maybe it's because I grew up on Twilight Zone. I don't know, but I like it when, a film with no special effects, no VFX, can still be amazing sci-fi.
Yeah, literally none, other than the green light. But if you guys watch, you will see the green light. That was the closest we got to special effects.
Exactly. So watch this film. You go to Amazon Prime Video. Hopefully you have a smart TV that's nice and big, because I'm not a big fan of people watching movies on phones, but you just go to an Amazon Prime Video app and you search for Discover Indie Film and enjoy Season 7, which will have Soft Spot. I think there's about 25 films in Season 7. Ooh. And, dear people, it's $7.99 for the whole season, so you're paying $8 to see 25 films that people made from their hearts and souls, and, come on.
To steal.
Support indie film. Support indie film. Support indie film. People are making these films for all the right reasons. There was no committee on a studio lot sat down and said, how can we maximize profits on our IP?
Yeah. God, wouldn't that be? You don't approach all of your short films from a perspective of IP? Because I always go could this... No.
Have you created... Yeah, you were like, if I do a soft spot film, then I'll be able to sell tattoos.
How can I really, amp up the merch on this bad boy? Yeah.
The merch.
Yeah, that's what it's about.
Oh, God, wait till you hear what I did at one point in life. But anyway, it was.
Did you make merch? Design it?
No, not design. Well, I'll tell you when we're not recording.
Okay.
So anyway, I mentioned Discover Indie Film. I think we also talked about Sherman Oaks Film Festival that Jerome's film was in. So if you want to learn about that one that we hold every November, the website is ShermanOaksFF.com, and on social media it's at ShermanOaksFF. And there's a sister festival every June. That is Film Invasion Los Angeles. Same festival, different name, different team. The same team, different, but we have the two names. You can learn about that festival if you go to filminvasionla.com, and it's at filminvasionla on social media. And Jerome joked about how he was not a weed guy, but he delivered weed when he first got to town. I'm not that big a weed guy, but I already mentioned how many films I watch a year, right? So I watched enough of them, and I was like, that would be really fucking good to watch high.
Oh, well, and I want to clarify in that I was not, and then I wouldn't, calling myself it'd be fair to call myself a weed guy. I don't want to use the term stoner. I don't know if that's denial or not, but
there's a difference between someone who wake and bakes.
I don't wake and bake.
Someone who works all day and comes home and instead of a beer has an edible.
Yes,
or smoke something.
Yeah. That's much more in line with how I like to partake. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I introduced the topic because I did start a thing called THC Cinema, where we rent the same theater that we hold the film festivals at.
Oh, that's fun.
And on April 20th, on 4/20, we sat there, a group of 60 people just hanging out, and we watched about 15, 16 shorts in a row that were just curated by me to be wonderful to watch when you're stoned, and it was a really nice thing. So we're doing it again next 4/20.
Okay.
And so people can go to thccinema.com or at THC Cinema and keep your eyes on there in the social media, because I got something else brewing that I can't quite mention yet, but it's going to be fun. And, I love that. Obviously my generation, it's really weird now that weed is legal.
It's so available.
And it's been such a weird, I still feel like I have to say, I'm not a big weed guy.
Yeah.
I just, I pop this tasty edible in my mouth at 9 o'clock at night, and
great
the
sleep.
last hour of TV I watch is extra enjoyable, and then I get to sleep 6-7 hours.
Can I quickly recommend? Have you watched 1899? It just came out.
No, I haven't watched.
Have you watched the show Dark on Netflix?
I loved Dark. That was the one from Germany, right?
Yes. So the team who made that, they just dropped their new show. It's called 1899, and it's not quite as, it's just as weird and intricate as Dark, but not quite as heady, if that makes sense. So whereas Dark was so intense, I didn't watch that high. I wanted to be able to focus. And 1899 is great to watch high. Very, very much recommend it.
And is it Netflix again?
It's on Netflix again, yeah.
All right. It's on my list now.
Yeah.
I love Dark, but I don't want us getting talking about Dark. We gotta.
Well, yeah.
We're gonna wrap it up.
Okay.
I'm thanking Jerome Marshall for being here and talking to me in person on the microphones. And watch his film Soft Spot on Discover Indie Film, the TV series. And hey, thank you for listening. Oh, I didn't say the like and subscribe thing. I do. I'm such a bad podcaster.
People know.
You should like, you should subscribe, you should be supportive. And I'll add, nice comments, right? We live in a world where trolling is too easy to do. Like, you see something bad and you write a shitty review, and you see something good and you move on and watch another good thing.
It's true.
Take the time to write good reviews. I'm working myself on that one.
That's a good New Year's resolution. You know, it's coming around the corner. I'll add that to the list.
I know. I kind of want to hire a college kid to like write a good review of everything that's at the festivals on IMDb, because like I'll go to IMDb and I'll see like a film I loved, and some people will shit on it, and sometimes they're shitting on it for the worst reason.
Yeah.
I'm like, but then life gets too busy and I stop writing the IMDb. I'm gonna get back to it.
I like the idea of having a positive self-esteem intern. I think that should be a job. You know,
that is a good idea. By the way, Discover Indie Film does have a review section now.
Yeah,
because I started this, and but the funny thing is everything only has 5 thumbs up so far because I'm just choosing the features who've been on this podcast that I love. So I'm like,
right. So
the sampling is off. So I actually have to and I don't want to shit on indies. So
no,
I gotta find someone
the metric
who
is
wants
different.
to take the time. By the way, it's like the rule is like it has to be a brief review with no spoilers.
Mm-hmm.
So
people
it's
are bad at
one
that.
or 2 sentences, and then it goes on this Discover Indie Film review section. And I'm like, I gotta find a guy who I know a couple guys who on Instagram review films all the time.
Yeah,
and I gotta say, hey, can I just copy and paste your reviews and give you credit and put it so that I can take your
that's smart,
your thing, and then there won't be all 5 thumbs up from me because
so people will trust the review system.
Pretty hard to trust a review system where there's never a review below 5 thumbs up.
Like, wow, this guy's really positive. His standards are very
low. Such a positive person. I my Kundalini is. I don't even know what Kundalini means.
I was like, wow. I was very impressed with your use of the term.
I learned from a podcast yesterday what namaste means.
Does it? What does it mean? I'm not even going to guess because I thought I knew the vibe of what it meant, but does it not? Oh, you tell me.
According to this gentleman, namaste means the God in me recognizes the God in you, as in the spirit inside the part of me that's not meat recognizes that there's part of you that's more than meat. That's nice. By the way, the more than meat thing is 100% me. He's the one who talked about the God in me acknowledges the God in you.
I like the meat terminology better. That suits my worldview better.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to thank everyone for listening, and I'm going to hit stop right now.